Welcome to F1 Rolling Start podcast.
Hello.
We are your hosts, James and
Ben. What's up?
And we're so excited that you've joined us today because it is season 2 of the Rolling Start podcast, episode 1. We made it
to a second season. Most podcasts don't last.
95% of them die after 10 episodes, and we are way past that.
We're in the top 5.
We're in the top 5% of podcasts right here. It's a rainy day in Los Angeles, but it was a sunny week in the Middle East, and that's all that matters because it was F1 preseason testing. We're going to talk all about it, but before we do that, whatever platform you're listening on, do us a huge favor. Like it, send it to a friend. If you like Formula One, the chances are you found others that like it as well. Absolutely. Send out podcasts to them. Like it, subscribe, wherever you're listening to. It means the world for us. Drop us a comment. Follow us on Instagram, F1 Rolling Start. Let's have a conversation. If you slide into our DMs, we'll slide right back.
I was like, I don't know where you're going with that.
Oh, my goodness. We're here to have fun. All right, preseason testing. We just watched, well, I don't think either of us actually watched all 24 hours, but it was 24 hours of cars driving around the Bahrain track. I got to be honest, I did feel like a crack addict. Mm-hmm. Because after 2.5 months of no races, it was nice to see those cars flying around the track.
Yeah, it was incredible. Preseason testing it's really, and Christian Horner's, I was going to say he said it best, but everything.
You say it best.
No, this particular phrase, he was like, well, preseason testing is when everyone drops their pants and see what you're actually dealing with.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but it's right. The teams show up. And obviously, preseason testing, you're still not showing all your cards.
Nah.
And there's elements of it where it's still unknown. You don't know how much fuel each car has when they're running or what their engine, mode is or whatever. But essentially, it's 24 hours over 3 days.
Yep.
There's only one car per team allowed in any one of the sessions. And so you don't have both the drivers racing at the same time, testing at the same time. And then you've got all the teams and they're running different scenarios, right? So they're like, okay, on this one, we're actually going to have you go an entire race.
Yeah.
You're going to go the entire thing, 50, 60 laps, depending on how long the actual race is per the circuit. Or they're going to do a shorter stint.
Yep.
Switch out the tires. They're going to also, put some FlowViz paint on their car. They're going to use rakes to try to better understand the flow of the air over the different components. But it's really an opportunity for the team to just put their car through as 100%. Many possible scenarios as possible and just eat up all that data.
Yeah. It's like little engineers are just like, oh, give me all the data. Give me all the data. Hold on. Put an aero rig on it. Oh, give me some more FlowViz. I want the orange FlowViz. I like it better.
If you're staked, yes. But no, it's the opportunity for the team to just geek out with the data and say, okay, what is the data telling us about our car?
One of the teams was like, we have terabytes of data that we're going to go over, because it's not just data. It is a time where the teams get to see what everyone else is working with, but in reality, it's also a time where they get to see what they're working with, because the wind tunnel models are not full size cars. They're scaled down cars.
I didn't even know that.
Isn't that crazy?
Until I actually saw it, because there's like a wind tunnel and I was like, oh, there's the car. And then
then someone's standing next to it, and you're like, is that Goliath? What the heck?
It was. I didn't realize that. I thought it was the actual size, because you see these wind tunnels.
No, it's limited from a cost perspective, and so
unreal.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So it's a time where they're kind of like, what do we have?
Yeah, they don't know.
Did we? I.e., 2 years ago when Mercedes came out with the zero pods. And they thought it was going to be amazing, but I guess the wind tunnel doesn't always tell the truth.
No,
it was definitely an exciting few days.
Yeah,
like you said, a few people held their cards close to their chest.
Yeah, each team's trying to get information while also not giving information to other teams. But there were some themes that came out,
big themes
of testing, some huge themes. And I think the first and the most important is that Las Vegas isn't the only circuit that has a drain cover issue.
Yes, vindicated
twice at least.
You know what it is? I think it's Ferrari's fault, because they're the ones that sucked up the drain cover in Vegas, and they're the ones that sucked up the drain cover in Bahrain. They were actually scratching their heads. Okay, so if you weren't watching the 24 hours, which most people didn't,
no.
Chuck Leclerc comes around a corner.
Good old Chuck.
He comes around a corner and goes crazy. They were all going crazy wide because track limits are not a thing during testing. No one's watching. No one cares. And basically, they ripped up one of the drain covers, and it tore the floor up of Chuck's car. Okay, the crazy thing is that Sainz, obviously only one driver at a time. He was actually standing trackside at that corner of all corners.
I didn't realize he was at that
spots
corner.
The drain cover and tries to go tell a marshal hey, you got to flag the session. Someone that's gonna like rip apart. And if anyone would know,
it would be him.
It would be Sainz.
It would be his back
because it was his car that almost got completely destroyed.
PTSD is just coursing through him.
But that wasn't the only drain cover that came up. Also, Checo brought up a chunk of the track as well. Took some damage into his floor. The crazy thing was that they were scratching their heads because it's never happened at Bahrain. Bahrain is a purpose-built racetrack.
Yeah, this isn't a street circuit.
No, it's not like Vegas where they're running down the main strip and on streets and around corners and they're like hoping that things fall together. You expect it on that, at Monaco.
Yeah.
But for Bahrain, they think it has to do with the fact that in the middle of the desert, for whatever reason, during the F3 testing, it bucketed down rain. And the track obviously is not built to handle a ton of rain. So they think that probably loosened up all the stuff around the drain covers, which makes me nervous for the fact that we have a race there this coming week. And so, like, what's going to happen with the rest of the track when you have 20 cars flying around? I mean,
you'd hope they've got some freaking tar or something that they're going to be buttoning up the hatches before the actual race. But anyway, I mean, not that was the biggest thing to come out. It
definitely wasn't the biggest
thing. Testing, but
what do you actually think the biggest thing is? Like, if you had to say, coming out of the 24 hours of driving we just saw, going into Bahrain this week, what's the headline?
I think it's that there's a dark horse.
You think that it's the dark horse?
I actually do.
Wow. Who's your dark horse?
RB.
Really?
Yeah, V-carb.
Okay, so we have to define dark horse, because dark horse to me is like who's competing for the win, and you think V-carb is competing for the win?
No. The dark horse for me is no one put their money on them.
No.
Right?
No.
But
this is the first season they have their new team principal instated. Yeah. Why would you ever put their money?
You've got
money on it?
New leadership. You've got Danny Rick racing for a full season for the first time.
Consistent Yuki.
You've got a new car.
Yep.
There's bits and pieces they've obviously taken from Red Bull. But the fact that they're squarely in the midfield, that's what I think is actually really exciting, because they're shaking it up. They had the potential to shake it up.
Right.
And they're downplaying it.
Yeah. 100%.
Danny's downplaying 100%. It. Everyone on the team's downplaying it, just like McLaren was at Silverstone, when they're like, well, we were on the podium, but, that's just a one-off. And then the next race, they're like, oh, actually fast, So they're downplaying it, but I think they're a contender now if this is their actual pace, which, again, we don't know fuel loads. We don't know engine modes, but
there's a ton of caveats, but let's flick all the caveats.
But that for me was like, that's a headline. That is really exciting to see Danny, because all of the commentary is like, oh yeah, these guys are going to be going for points off the bat.
Yeah, 100%.
So for me, that's really exciting.
Yeah.
What was the main headline for you coming out of testing?
Well, the main headline for me is more of a fear.
Does it have something to do with your hat?
Yes. It's Mercedes is officially a midfield team. It's like
best of the rest.
We're best of the rest all of a sudden.
All of a sudden, Mercedes is like, yeah, we're just going to be fighting for best of the rest. I was like, in what dystopian nightmare?
Correct.
Of Toto Wolff's did he say, in 2024, we're going to be best of the rest? Like, this is
unreal.
It's the largest fall from grace. And again, I get it, but we can't stop talking about it because of how cataclysmic it is. That they're just settled there. They're okay now.
It's crazy. When we first started talking about creating this podcast,
yes,
our drivers were duking it out.
God, it's been a minute.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like we first started talking about the idea of what this podcast could be right after the 2021 World Championship, going into 2022 with the new regs. And again, it lasted a year of us going, oh, Mercedes is just got to get their feet together. And then last year was terrible. And this year they come out and they're just kind of nowhere. Which to me, it is the story. Sure, everyone I expected Red Bull to be at the front of the pack. They did some crazy stuff design-wise, but I'm like, I expected this. That's not really the story of the week to me.
No.
I think their dominance, unfortunately, will continue. I think we will have more race wins. I don't think they're going to win, 20 plus races this year.
No, like that's not going to happen. And that's because Ferrari seems to have figured out their tire degradation issue. McLaren
looks amazing, and they haven't even done a run on the soft tires.
Yeah.
It's insane.
So, I mean, I think Red Bull being number one is not the top line. Red Bull going with the 0 pod and getting it right. I'll say about this because your team obviously went that direction. They stubbornly stuck to it longer than they should have. But I was thinking about this. I was like, maybe they weren't wrong. Maybe they saw the glimpse of what this could actually be, and they were just trying to get it figured out. Because obviously, Red Bulls is an iteration of what they had. Obviously, it's a little different, but I think Mercedes during that season when they went 0 pods, they knew the potential. They couldn't actually reach out.
They couldn't put it together. Well, there's a difference between what Red Bull has done and what the 0 pod was, because the 0 pod literally was no side pod, and so
Red Bull has a. There's still something
there's multiple different cooling elements within that tucked side pod. They're still going for more of a strip line, a streamline situation with their aerodynamics, and they're getting it. But they have that vertical, they have the tiny slot, and then they have these additional air vents on top, which we don't know what they cool yet. We have no idea what's going on, which they'll keep secret as long as possible.
Yeah.
That also are right behind the driver's head on either side that funnel into, which were sneakily enough blocked off during their car reveal. You couldn't see that, and so that is cool. It's different than a 0 pod though.
It is.
I think what they saw is that what they've said is we've developed the RB19 to the point where we knew we needed to change the design of this car in order to be further competitive, which is what they've done this year. So their car looks nothing like every other car on the grid, and every other car on the grid looks a lot like their car last year.
Stunning.
Yes.
That would be the case.
Concerning. Because here's why I'm wearing this hat. And I'm a little nervous.
A post-mortem thing?
Yes.
Or...
Actually, yes.
Okay.
Explain because that. You know what? Alpine, the literal vanilla team at the moment.
Even in testing, all of the experts were like, what is going on?
Their expectations matched their livery. It was boring.
Yeah,
it was depressing. And they're trying to play it off like, don't count us out. And I'm like, bro, you've been counted out. You're like that. You're like that unfortunate kid in gym class that's always like, pick me, but no one wants to pick them.
That's tough.
You know what I mean?
Were you ever that kid?
Maybe. And so
playing basketball.
I actually was that kid.
Oh no!
I know. I was actually the kid that in dodgeball, I was really good at dodging the ball. The problem was I couldn't catch it to save my life.
Gotta be
so
dodge,
I was
catch and throw.
Yeah, I could only
Triple
dodge.
threat.
So I would always be the last person in.
Mm-hmm.
But then, I would lose. It's a lot of pressure. But anyway, the thing that makes me nervous is this. The grid all has RB9-esque cars.
Yes.
Red Bull has said we developed that car to the point of perfection. So we moved on to a new design that we think is going to be better.
Absolutely.
Mercedes is starting this year for the first time with an RB9-esque car around in a grid who has been developing that style of a car for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And Mercedes is going, great. Oh, we're joining the party late.
Very
Mercedes has become what F1 was nervous about in bringing Andretti in. You're behind the ball.
Yeah, that is actually a great observation. This is the thing that you're calling out here. Mercedes waited too long to humble themselves. Mercedes,
I will humbly accept that on their behalf.
Mercedes is a proud brand.
100%.
You have no reason to say we got it wrong. I think they were doing everything they could to try to show, no, we can still make this work. And it's a massive piece of humble pie you got to eat to say, actually, our main competitors, they aced this design and we can't touch it. So we might as well just go
embrace
that
it.
route. But again, like you're saying, it's 2 years too late.
It's 2 years too late.
And now Red Bull's like, oh, that was cool. That was fun. We're off for the next thing. And the next thing was 1.5 seconds faster per lap than last year's testing.
Yes, I know. It's insane.
So that's the piece of it where, like, I'm glad Ferrari, McLaren, RB, even Mercedes is better this year in testing. Right. But Red Bull's still like, yeah, we're moving on.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so I think you're calling it out right. And I do wish they would have changed sooner.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think we all wish, and they wished they would have too. They tried to go that route, and it didn't work for them. And now here we are, 2 years behind, and an eight-time world champion down next year. So, 7-time world champion.
Question for you.
Mm-hmm.
I love 8-time world champion. Mercedes is.
Yeah.
7-time for Hemi. So this was something that came up as another theme off of testing, was that this year the grid's closer.
Yep.
The best of the rest is a lot closer now.
Mm-hmm.
And the focus is really going to be on the development race throughout the year, bringing the upgrades throughout the year. Last year, we saw McLaren ace it.
Explode,
right? Like
midway through, they hit their stride.
They just
boom. Silverstone on. They were insane.
Incredible. So they know how to do that. They've got a track record for what it looks like to actually bring tons of developments throughout the year.
Yep.
Who do you think, though, is actually of the best of the rest? So Ferrari, McLaren, Mercedes, Aston, RB at this point, who is going to be the best of the rest as far as the development race?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. Okay, so let me backtrack a little bit on my last previous statement then, because I think, and I'm saying this, I know it's going to sound like just because I'm wearing a Mercedes hat and they're my team, but I think Mercedes will be. Here's why. Because yes, they're 2 years behind on their global design, but they're crafty little things. Do you remember DAS? Where they created the steering wheel that you would push in and pull out.
I do.
And they dominated. So when they were going into corners, they could change the rake of the front wheels to get more grip. And then when they were going down the front line, do you remember that the blown diffusers, where when they hit a certain speed on a straight, the back of the car was designed for a piece to fail, so it would lower the car so they could go even faster down the strip. And then when they braked, it would suddenly self-repair itself because the downforce was now taken off. Like Mercedes are they will find every way they possibly can to creatively interpret the rules that have been placed. And they will do that, and then it will defend it, and then it will be illegal the next year. But in the meantime, they will win. Okay, so they came out this year, and front wings have a very specific design element within the new regulations, and that is that every part has to be connected from the end plate to the nose section.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the top of their wing, if you look at it, is connected wide from the end plate, and then all of a sudden it goes down to pretty much about 1 centimeter and then travels all the way along, which is very, very reminiscent of pre-2022 cars when they would design their front wings to be as thin as possible towards the nose so that you can get as much. The downside is you get a lot of dirty air coming off around you, which is the antithesis of what they're going for with the 2022 rule change. And so they've done it. It's been deemed legal. It's up and down the paddock. Everyone's going like, what's going on here? Another thing, Formula One front. I'm nerding out now on the tech side. Okay. So Formula One front ends, the suspension.
Yes.
Everyone's talking about pull rod, push rod, whatever. Who cares about that? First and foremost, you have to realize that the suspension on a Formula One car, it's not like you can just change it out or change the design.
Yeah.
It has to be, it's integrated into the chassis. So when you change the design and the placement of those bars that you see going all across, the scaffolding needs to attach to the frame into the chassis, which means that it's got a mounting point.
Yep.
Mercedes, during the testing, people started realizing that they would see the car and one of the struts would be attached like halfway up the nose. And then the next time it would be attached like almost all the way down the bottom. So what they've done is they've created with the front end of their car, basically a way for them to go, oh, we need a different suspension setup at this track. So we're going to go with this setup. And then we're at Silverstone, so we need a different setup here. And now we're at Monaco, so we need a different setup here. And they literally changed the suspension design on the entirety of the front line of their car. The rest of the grid cannot do that.
That's
because
incredible.
They didn't think about doing it. So I'm like, okay, Mercedes is 2 years behind, but they are crafty little devils. They are the Alonso of racing, is what Toto Wolff has taught his engineers to be.
Yeah.
And so they're going to come out, and I think their development will be I hope their development is a hockey stick. I think we'll end the first race 4th, 5th, maybe 6th, top 10, but I don't think we'll be contending for the race win. I think that will be Red Bull, obviously, and then really close. My money is actually not on Ferrari; it's on McLaren.
Interesting. Yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah, I think that's really, really interesting. I do think
it was a long monologue. I apologize.
No. Here's what I think that's showing, though. Mercedes at this point, like, what do you got to lose?
Exactly.
Right. And
go crazy.
I love when a team is kind of just like, well, what do we actually have to lose? Like, we've lost the last 2 years and we were the best. And now it's like, we're down. We've lost. Like, let's actually go for it. Let's get creative. I'm fine with that. I'm here for that. So, okay. So you're saying Mercedes.
Please, someone get creative.
You're saying Mercedes. I'm saying I think McLaren.
So you think McLaren will win the development race?
I think they'll put on a good showing.
Oh, 100%.
They've done it before. They're already way ahead of where they were last year when they released the car for testing. I think they will put on a good show for the development. I think it'll be probably McLaren and Mercedes, honestly.
So you think Ferrari will drop down?
I feel like Mercedes and McLaren will pass them. I don't know if they're necessarily going to drop, but I don't know if they'll be able to maintain the development race. But they're looking good now.
Yeah.
With RB, they're saying that RB did a ton of development super late on. And so a lot of folks are saying like they're not going to have a ton to kind of roll out with as the season progresses necessarily. They kind of waited and like pushed it until the very last bit to develop. And so
that explains their leap in the last part of last season. But I guess my hope would be that would just be an indication of how much they realized they could learn. But I guess that was just them putting this year's car parts on last year's car.
That's what folks are saying.
That's unfortunate because they're my McLaren I was hoping they would be the McLaren of last year for this year. I was hoping they would come out swinging and then just keep steadily improving. I'm really confident that they are going to definitely beat Williams.
Oh yeah.
Kick.
Haas,
obviously. And I think what we will see is that it won't just be Alpine in that middle to top area.
I think they're going to beat Alpine.
Exactly. I think they'll beat Alpine.
Yeah. I mean, right now, it's as far as race pace. Let me find this graphic real quick. Race simulation has RB right behind Aston. race, qualifying simulation, has RB ahead of Aston, and then race has them right behind Aston, and then it's Stake, and then it's Alpine right above Williams.
Yep. Yeah. Again, we have to take into consideration some of the caveats,
of course.
Of
and this is the challenge with testing is like it's looking into a glass darkly. Like it's like a mirror where it's like you're not really seeing the full picture.
Exactly.
So, but at the same time, I mean, we think about last year, McLaren was awful in testing.
McLaren was awful in testing.
Were awful.
Yep. And Red Bull was dominant in testing, and then they were dominant in thing. Mercedes was a question mark. Ferrari was a question mark, and then they pretty much equally won P2 and P3. It was like, a baby's breath between them, if you would. Okay, so I want to talk about something real quick.
Yeah.
So we saw McLaren, the dark horse, the launch of their car was very mysterious in nature. They just dropped a bunch of Instagram pics.
Yeah.
And now they came to testing, and they've been very quiet from a media perspective, very reserved from a media perspective. They did not bring the soft tire to show any hot laps. And so we have, great quali and great race simulation based off of medium tires. And so are we thinking
that's potentially pretty exciting?
Exactly. So although a lot of people have them and Ferrari kind of vying for the number 2 spot, I really feel like McLaren is going to be the ones that come out the gate. It's going to be Silverstone in Bahrain. That's my prediction for this week. Like, do you feel that this is the year for McLaren?
And maybe it's just because Drive to Survive's back.
Right.
And I've seen the turmoil that Lando has been going through. He just wants to win.
He needs a win. He needs to win.
And so, like, I hope, and here's the thing that may be why there's some more silence. Last year, I think there was some chatter from McLaren, some talk about where they were going to be, and then they weren't.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think this year, they're probably just erring on the side of like, let's do our talking on the racetrack.
Mm-hmm.
And let's come out the gate swinging, and let's actually go for this. Let's really do whatever it takes, which is their big thing. So I'm here for it. I'm fine with you not showing us what your hot lap looks like in testing.
Yeah.
I'm fine with you saying no, we're gonna save that. And I'm fine with you only doing 80%. Like,
great.
I'm here for it. And so yeah, I mean, they're not far behind Ferrari. They're not far behind Mercedes in race simulation at all. But again, I think we don't have all the data. We don't have the entire picture. So
I don't think we have all the data. I don't think we have the picture. Here's my prediction for the first race. It's Lando's first win.
That's bold. Max has to crash out.
Max hasn't DNF'd since I don't even remember the last time. It's been years. It's been years since he's literally It was
2021. It was when him and Hammy were going at each other. He DNF'd in Silverstone. He DNF'd
in
but Italy.
Since the new era, that Honda power unit, Sergio's got all the gremlins. Yeah, and even during practice, Sergio got the gremlins again. And Max was fine the entire time.
Yeah, Max literally did 2 races worth of laps. And the car
Sergio
fine.
Gets in and they're like, wow. Okay, but I will say this about Sergio.
So you're saying, hang on a second.
I'm saying Lando wins the first race.
Oh, I mean, I'm here for it. I have all these feels just thinking about it. And I'm a huge Max fan. I want Lando to win. I want him to win.
Yeah.
It pains me that he hasn't yet.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to. Unless Max DNFs.
I don't care about the Max DNFing part. I agree with you. I'm just saying my bold prediction for the first race
love it
is that he would win. This is a great time to stop and let you know about our F1 Racing Fantasy League. We started one for the followers of this show. So if you want to join us, it'll be in the show notes. You can join us. It's through the F1 app, the F1 Rolling Start Fantasy League. See if you can beat me. You'll definitely beat Ben because he hasn't even set his team up yet.
There. I can't get apps. I was like, oh yeah, I saw something about that come through, but I'm not going to be on there. So
you can do it on the website. Oh my goodness. Okay. Anyway, make sure you sign up that they're in the show notes. Okay. So let's shift gears for a second. I do want to do a little bit more of a deep dive into Mercedes because that car looked like garbage.
Mm-hmm.
So even though they have all of these crazy parts,
yeah,
and their race pace is decent,
they seem happier than
yes,
but
they have a developable car. But is that what we expect from Mercedes coming out in the first race?
I don't know what to expect from Mercedes anymore. I don't know if Mercedes knows what to expect from Mercedes anymore.
That's a good point.
If George Russell sounded like he was the PR guy for Red Bull when he was talking about the upcoming season, if he said,
that's another thing. Okay, George is getting on my nerves.
I was like, George, you race for Mercedes. Why? He literally said incredible about Red Bull like 7 times, and like I was like, bro, you can get.
I'm like, are you vying for Sergio's seat right now?
I was like,
like, is that what's happening? You think that you're gonna do like next thing you know, come out and be like, I support Christian Horner no matter the outcome of this thing. He's just gonna. He wants his seat. He's like, oh, Sergio's up. Lewis is gone. Toto's off the rails. I don't know what to do. I'm gonna go for the Red Bull seat.
I mean,
He's like a test tube race car driver. It's hilarious. It's like they made him perfectly. Like, you know how they make the Power Puffs?
Power Puffs.
A little sugar, a little spice, and everything nice. And those the Powerpuff Girls. Remember that cartoon?
No, I don't.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, that's how they made George Russell.
Yeah, a little of all the things.
It was like that episode, like that moment in Drive to Survive in Vegas when they're talking about all of the drivers popping up and how they're gonna, the American guys say, hey, this is your moment to be like a rock star, and everyone goes, well, yeah, this is your moment to do your performance, and they're like, wait, what's our performance? And then he's like, just be a rock star, just do whatever you want. And George is like, oh, we're really excited for this. And all the other drivers are like, what? No, we're trying to get out of this, George. Shut up. He's class president. George is the guy that ran for class president. George he literally is the president of the unofficial drivers, like whatever that little club they have. Like, dude, oh my gosh, George.
Well, so Mercedes. Here's the thing.
That car's a pig.
Race simulation pace with all the caveats, they're actually right behind Red Bull.
Yeah, but that's what it was last year.
That was worse last year, wasn't it?
No, their race pace was really good. That's how they beat Ferrari, was on their race pace.
Well, but in testing though.
Oh no, in testing it was trash.
So I'm saying we're in testing.
Yeah, that's true.
So comparing it to testing last year, that's at least a better thing, is you're right behind Red Bull hypothetically. Yeah. You're only 0.2 seconds off.
You're my F1 therapist.
I'm also my dad's therapist. He just calls me.
Don't say too much. Your dad listens to this.
No, he does. No, literally today I was calling him and he was my therapist today. I love my dad. He's such a good guy. But he literally was talking. He's like, yeah, you go to church on Sundays and then, you gotta make time for all the F1 stuff and Mercedes and all these guys.
I like that he said Mercedes.
He's a good Midwesterner at heart.
Midwestern.
So he's like, these guys are always saying bad words and this and that, and I'm like, that is it's so good. It's so good. You know who he does remind me of? Zach Brown.
Oh, I love Zach Brown.
I was like, Dad, you remind me of Zach Brown.
And that's a compliment.
Good American.
That is a compliment.
In
F1,
right there. You're you care about your drivers. You keep people. They're loyal to you. And you're also just a fighter.
He's Zach Brown without the naughty words, as your dad would say. Yeah.
Yes.
I like that. Yeah, Mercedes. Look, their car is developable. Yes, I think what frustrates me is that the good laps that they got were mostly from Hamilton, which is a 7-time world champion. So you expect him to take a dog's breakfast. Yes, a guy who's leaving. But you expect him in a car. He's going to get the most out of any car because of his experience. But even him. Will you watch the onboards? Anytime I saw him trying to go around certain of these low speed and high speed corners, he was wrestling that car.
Yeah, they were definitely sliding a little bit.
Like chainsawing that flipping steering wheel all over the place. They had a bunch of lockups, a bunch of rear slippage.
I saw some of that stuff too.
So I'm nervous for them. Okay, but someone did spin out.
It's our boy.
It's your boy.
Not my
your
boy.
Favorite person in the whole wide world.
Not my boy.
Logan Sargent.
Here's the thing. for the Sarge. I'm gonna dive into this.
Sarge.
I'm gonna dive into this.
Dive into it.
We were talking about this a little bit before the show started. There is a continuum of stress,
Correct,
that all these drivers are on.
Mm-hmm.
Hamilton has a certain stress level, even being multiple world champion. Max also has certain things that are pressures or stresses. Alonso as well. But even though every driver feels pressure, the pressure they feel is unique to them.
Mm-hmm.
It's unique to the team they're on. It's unique 100%. To their performance. It's unique to their personality almost. Logan Sargent is under a lot of pressure. He just is.
Yeah.
Because there's this guy, I don't know, Oscar Piastri, who's the other guy who's
Liam Lawson,
who are brand new to F1, who
are ripping and tearing
and making him look really, really bad.
100%.
And so this is, the pressure he feels is way different than the pressure Alonso or Hamilton feels, but it's still immense.
This is the first time I felt bad for him because he not just because I'm an emotionless human, but because last year he was trying to prove himself and there was a lot of comments and concern around his career and whether or not he was going to make it. James Vowles decided
we
to
had
stay
some
with
of those.
100%.
We were like, James, what are you doing?
What are you doing?
Go get someone else.
Go get Lawson. Yeah. Go get anyone. Go get someone with a pulse, and they'll probably do better than Sargent.
We said
based
some strong
off of
words.
last year's performance.
We said some strong words.
Okay, so here's the thing. Sargent then goes through the winter, trains his butt off.
Yeah.
Puts on like 5 pounds of muscle. I don't know why he was so excited to tell everyone that he's put on 5. Maybe it was kilos. And that's a lot. If he put on 5 kilos, that's actually a lot.
I was going to say that's a couple of cheeseburgers, but kilos would be more.
Kilos would be a lot more. Anyway, someone fact check us. I'm sure you will. And he comes in, and there's all this high energy. The team's with him. James Vowles is saying, yep, it's on Logan. He's just got to prove himself. We're going out there for consistency. Guy gets on track, spins the car, can't get underneath him, can't put his feet together. Again. And I guess my question is like, number one, I don't think you or I are surprised by this, but what must that pressure feel like? What pressure is Logan under at the moment?
Well,
when he lays his head on his pillow at night, what does he think about? Deep philosophical question.
Yeah, this is a really deep philosophical question. He feels pressure from a place of lack. Mm-hmm. Whereas Max, Alonso, and Hammy feel pressure from a place of strength. Mm-hmm. They're under pressure because of how good they are.
Right.
Because they have performed and they have won.
Proven themselves.
And they have been at the pinnacle, so they're expected to stay at the pinnacle. His pressure is from a place of, I have nothing.
Right.
I don't have a single... I'm going to say he doesn't have a single point to his name. Because the point that he did get was...
In Austin
after the race was over. When Hamilton
and Leclerc got disqualified.
So he doesn't have a legitimate point to his name.
Exactly.
So his pressure is from you're not even in the game yet, bro. You're not even playing the same sport as some of these guys. Like, you're literally at the bottom.
You might as well have not been here last season.
And you have to perform. Period. So it's different when it's like, well, I got to keep up my performance because I'm performing at such a high level. Whereas his is like, I need to show up or I'm gone.
Yeah.
This is it.
I 100% agree with you. My thought is, will James Vowles pull a Nick DeVries on Logan Sargent?
James was talking about his decision.
There's got to be a performance clause.
And there is a performance clause. He literally said, I sat down with him. I told him that we're bringing him back next year. And I also told him in the same conversation, and these are all the things that need to change.
Hey, I love James Vowles. I love it. He did go a little Microsoft 1925 on his computer screens at the pit wall. 1975. I don't know, like 90s corporate.
Yeah.
On the Williams pit wall at one point, they cut across it and the screensavers were on, and it was like 4 power words. And it was like, excellence, power, embrace,
I could see him
strength,
being the guy
data
in his
driven.
office
Oh my
who's
gosh,
got those
100%.
90s posters from like the
Yes.
office where it's like, it's like teamwork.
Yeah,
it's
it's the
flying.
Yes, it's the cat hanging on the string, and it says like dependence or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah, he opens up his closet in the morning. It's just literally white Oxford shirts lined from edge to edge. 100%.
I'm here for it though.
I'm 100% here for it.
But here's the thing that I think is a reality. I do not think Sargent gets an entire season to prove himself this year.
And that was going to be my question.
No,
I don't think he does.
I think this is how many races.
Mm-hmm.
You got to score points, bro.
Yeah.
But here's the thing too. Williams changed up their car. So there also is this issue of like, Sarge, Albon actually having to get used to a new car. They were having some issues with it during testing. They were having to kind of figure some things out. And it still looked fast and slippery in the straight line. And that's how Albon, I think, pretty much got all the points that he got last year, was by staying ahead of people. But there's still some other issues with their car, especially because it's a newer design. So
well, and
he's here for now. I think it's not a full season though, especially if he's not going to score points.
Yeah. And that is part of the problem, is that Williams, the odds are stacked against him because, like we said in the beginning, everyone's made a leap this year.
Everybody.
And which is great because it
fantastic.
brings everybody closer together.
Yep.
Or does it? Because if everybody made a leap,
we're all special,
including Red Bull, then we've just moved everybody up the field a little bit more, still a little further behind Red Bull.
Yep.
So the question is, and coming out of testings, this is actually a really big question mark between the bottom three teams, is between, well, let me just say, we all know Haas is going to stay at the bottom. They know that they're going to stay at the bottom.
They've had so much turmoil this year.
But Williams, they're looking at Kit going, flip. That's a good car.
Yeah.
They're looking at RB going, man, that's
RB's
a good car.
Jumped.
Yes.
They're like, bye-bye, bottom.
Literally.
At least for right now.
And so I'm kind of like, man, what is going to happen with Williams? They were such a great story last year. And Albon even said it. He's like, when everyone makes a leap, then we're all just in the same place. And I don't know if our leap was enough to make us competitive beyond where we were.
Mm-hmm.
Which is something daunting to think about, not just for Albon, who's looking down and going, okay, there's seats opening up everywhere.
There is.
What do I want the rest? I'm not getting any younger. What do I want the rest of my career to look like? Do I want to stick around hoping that this will happen, or do I want to jump ship now?
Yeah, I think ultimately there's going to be some questions over Williams because of the perceived improvement of their competitors. And so I think they've got to come out. They've got to perform to keep Albon.
Yeah.
And Sarge has got to perform to keep his seat.
Yeah.
So I think James is the best team principal they've had in their history besides their original founding. Yeah. And so he's the right guy for the job. But again, Sarge, I think, is going to be racing on a knife's edge. And it comes back to the question of pressure.
Yes.
What kind of pressure are these guys under, right? Like Albon, his pressure is, do I stay here? I've been in the sport for 100%. A long time. I want to start competing not just in the back or the midfield. I want to start competing at the front.
Yes.
Am I going to be able to do that with Williams, right? So like Lando's pressure is, I want to win.
100%.
Like, am I in a place that's going to give me a car to win, right? And so
Charles' pressure is, I've got a 7-time world champion coming in to sit in the same car as me
talk
next.
About some pressure.
I've been the golden child of this longest running F1 team, been given the longest contract in the history of Ferrari, and now they're bringing in a 7-time world champion. Am I going to become the second seat? Because I've always been the unofficial first.
Of course,
there is pressure across the board. Daniel, I'm 34 years old.
He's our age.
I know.
God,
he's 34 years old, and he's staring down the barrel of a gun. That's an Australian reference. He's staring down the barrel of a career where it's like, do I end my career with the amount of podiums I've had and the wins that I've had, or can I do something more?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's interesting because F1 is a pressure cooker.
That's all it is just.
But everyone's at a different level of pressure.
But for them, it's immense.
Yeah.
Like for every driver, even though we
100%.
could look at someone like Sargent and be like, well, your pressure is different than, Chuck or Hammy or whatnot. But it's like, but to them, it's still immense. It's still
they've been
highly
working towards
personal.
it since they were 6-7 years old. And to think that like they have orientated their entire lives around this.
Yeah.
He didn't go to college. He didn't do that. He probably barely graduated high school because he was so focused on racing. And that's what their family did. So he's like thinking, and he made it to the top. And so if he can't do something while he's here, this will haunt them for the rest of their lives.
I mean, speaking of a driver who was here last year and isn't here this year, DeVries.
Yes.
Here's a guy who literally is
28
so
years he waited.
Laser focused. These guys are like, they're fanatical.
Yeah.
They're fanatical in their ability to solely focus on the perfection of a single thing.
Yes.
And so Nick DeVries, we had lots to say about him last year. Everyone did, but like there was a moment where in Monaco, and shout out to Drive to Survive, great
DTS.
season, DTS.
My guys.
Not ashamed to say that it's a great
it's
show.
phenomenal.
If you don't think so,
You're
go
an idiot.
grow up. It's a great show. But DeVries in Monaco, all of a sudden you see him sit down and there's all the reporters around him and he's like, oh, this is the most people who've wanted to talk to me since last year. And everyone is incredibly sober because they know he's gone.
Yeah.
And they're just there to ask him questions about his future at Red Bull. And you see all of a sudden you see the dread and the realization of he's just like,
oh, this is done.
I'm done. I'm done.
This is the thing about Formula One. They will work their entire lives towards it. And you're either going to be in a position of proving yourself and power.
Mm-hmm.
Like Hamilton walks into Ferrari and they are trying to get him.
Yeah.
Max, if he were to go to any team, they would say, we will give you, if he went to McLaren, they said, we give you 50% ownership of this company. You know what I mean? Like not literally, but they can ask for the world. Logan walks into any one of those, it would be with his tail between his legs begging.
Yeah.
And the difference,
they wouldn't even let him in the door in some of those places.
And here's why. Nick DeVries' career was ended that day. When they sat down, we saw it in Drive to Survive. Shout out to the new season. When they sat down around that plastic folding table with styrofoam cups with tea in it.
Yep. It was done.
The guy's career was ended with Lipton.
God.
They sat there after Danny went out and they said, let's talk about, do you have a moment to talk about your guy?
Yeah.
Boom. You want to do it? You want to do it? Great. Walks over to Danny. You're in.
Those are literally how the decisions are made.
In a moment. And that's what Logan is looking at.
Yeah.
And if you don't think he watches Drive to Survive, you're an idiot too. Because he definitely watching that going, holy crap, let's make sure James doesn't drink any tea this year. And I'm never going to Silverstone.
No, I mean, this is how these decisions are made. And
it's crazy.
It's insane how the sacrifices you have made your entire life can amount to a couple races, one shot.
Yeah.
Then you're done. So yeah, talk about pressure.
Pressure.
I feel like I don't have a lot of pressure in my life. I mean, I do in some respects. There's definitely like some pressure, but
not like that.
Nothing like that.
Yeah.
Nothing like that.
And hey, look, they choose it. Life is what you make it.
Would you choose it?
No. Yeah. I even told Kirsten the other day, I was like, man, I'm so glad I do a podcast instead of being like Will Buxton or Laura Winters. And it's like,
I want to be
Lawrence
adjacent to it.
Or like, I love all of those people. I think that what they do is awesome. But like, Crofty is at every single race, -3 this year, which we'll talk about in a moment. But, I can't do that. I can't do that. I like my family too much. I miss my friends. It's just, I dig the sport, but I can dig it from my living room.
True.
and go to a few races every year. And I think that's awesome. Okay, so what I want to do now before we jump into some off track what's happening, because I do think we need to circle back on some of the things that are happening. I want us to give, I'll go first because I'm springing this on you. I want us to give us our predictions for the season. But before we do that,
the season or the first race, the whole season?
Let's talk testing. Where do we feel like our quote unquote pecking order?
Okay.
Our pecking order is. Fine. But before we do that, we do need to talk about something that we haven't yet, which is the fact that last year at this time, it was Red Bull, Aston Martin.
It was.
And Aston Martin was the story. Aston Martin now.
Not really the story.
No, very big slide.
Not really. They're fifth in simulation pace.
Yep. In sim pace, they're fifth. In quali, they're sixth. So Aston Martin is sliding down the wrong end. They
are. Now, there was a bright spot. Alonso showed some great pace, but again, It's Alonso. He's hammy, right? Alonso and hammy, Max, it's just a different beast when they're out there 100%. Racing. They're just going to race the pants off of that 100%. Car. But Aston is not looking great. And I think what it
admittedly to them too.
They took a colossal leap.
Yep.
This season, everyone else has just tightened up around them, and that's where it's at. They didn't take another colossal leap. And I think the pressure they feel is self-imposed pressure.
Mm-hmm.
It's from their leadership saying, Stroll admittedly saying, I am going to build one of the best.
We're going to win
teams.
We're going to win a world championship.
We're going to win. And that's when you have that level of pressure, anything else is a loss. So the fact that you're, after testing 1, 2, 3, 4, in sixth for qualifying simulation pace, you know who's ahead of them? RB.
Literally.
Is ahead of Aston in qualifying simulation pace.
And I'm here
for it too. You know who's not here for it? Stroll.
Right.
He doesn't want to know that. Like, wait, what?
Lawrence is losing it. Yeah, he's going to call everyone and say how unacceptable this is, except for his son. But he'll call everyone else and say how unacceptable it is.
Yeah, there'll probably be that. Now, we got to wait and see
what it looks like. I get it.
Like,
you know,
but
it's not, the caveats.
It's
not looking good. They were the story of preseason testing.
They are
last year.
Not the story. They're lost in the sauce right now.
They're lost in the sauce.
I was proud of that. As it was coming to me, I'm like, I'm going to go for it. I was like, oh, that landed well, I think.
I like that. We have coined a new phrase.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Okay, are you ready to do your pecking order, or do you want me to go first?
I'll go.
Okay, go.
It's not original to me, though, since this has sprung upon me.
Are you stealing Jolene's?
I'm going to, I think, adjust a few things.
Okay, great. Yeah, because what does a guy who's raced in actual Formula One races know?
Yeah. Well, what would he know about this, right?
Yeah, Jolene.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna say, and this is for the season. This is tough. Okay, all right. Okay, I'm gonna go number 10. I'm gonna keep Haas at number 10. That was his prediction.
100%.
They've got so much going on, just as a team, leadership, structure, etc. So I'm gonna keep them as number 10. I'm going to put Williams as number 9.
Wow.
Pains me to say that.
Wow.
Pains me to say that. But that is going to be in large part due to one person if he stays racing this entire season. Logan Sargent. He is going to keep them at number 9 if they keep him the entire year. Because the other drivers at stake, who I'm going to put at number 8, are better than he is.
Mm-hmm.
Period. And I think they got a better car. I'm going to leave Alpine at number 7. That seems like one of those numbers you just kind of pick when you're like, I don't really want to commit to one of the higher numbers or one of the lower numbers. I'll be like, I'm just a 7. Just they're under the radar. They're underwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to put Aston at number 6, which pains me to say that. Pains me to say that, but I'm actually going to put V-Carb at number 5.
Amazing.
I'm putting V-Carb there. We got Danny back.
I love it. Danny's back.
They've put a bunch of the old parts from the RB19 on that car. And, I'm just going to quickly say this. Last week, I was dogging on their livery. What a fool I was.
V-Carb, I'm telling you, yes,
What a fool.
yes.
Their livery.
Vindicated. It looks amazing. Did you see it at night?
Smacks.
Oh my gosh. It's so F1.
I was so wrong.
It's so F1.
I was so wrong.
I love it. I'm so proud of you for being so honest. If only Mercedes could have done that 2 years ago. Mercedes, take a page from Ben's book.
If you're going to be wrong, just don't be wrong for long.
Exactly.
Be wrong for a short amount of time. That's my motto in life. Okay, so
I love that you said
5.
that.
It's true. I'm gonna put Mercedes at 4th. That's not mine. That's Palmer's. But I'm gonna keep them at 4th. And then I'm actually gonna do. I can't believe I'm saying this. I'm gonna put Ferrari at 3rd, McLaren at 2nd.
This is crazy.
Red Bull at 1st.
That's crazy. That's literally my prediction.
I think McLaren is actually going to do whatever it takes.
Yeah, Lando's going to win the first race.
And I think this is going to be the year for them. I think Mercedes, for as much as they want this to be a glory goodbye tour to Hammy,
it's not.
There's other teams that are coming
ahead.
off the gate. So those are mine. Those are my top 10.
I'm exactly with you. 10 Haas, 9 Williams, 8 Stake, 7 Alpine, 6 Aston Martin, 5 V-Carb, 4 Mercedes, 3 Ferrari,
right?
2
there
McLaren, and 1 Red Bull. I based off of what we've seen so far, I don't see any other way to look at this. I'm with you. It pains me to say that Williams has slipped back, but I don't think that they're going to end where they ended last year based off of what we've seen so far, unless their development goes through the roof. But
it's not just their development, it's their drivers.
Yes.
Their drivers.
And that's the part. You know, you've got Stake where the car's not great, but you have Valtteri, and Guan Yu Zhou's actually pretty good driver.
Yeah. No, he is.
Did phenomenal last year in comparison to his teammate, who is a formidable driver, and anyone who says that he isn't is a fool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Alpine's nowhere, and I don't think they're going anywhere.
No,
they're going to remain in this area of ambiguity for such a long time. Aston Martin slipped back. You can't deny it. V-Carb came out flipping swinging.
They made a jump.
It's insane.
They made a jump.
Mercedes is the best of the rest, and it is unfortunate, but it is the reality. It may change in the middle because they are great at developing.
Yes.
But as far as I see right now, Ferrari has them beat. McLaren is the dark horse. I am 100% convinced.
I'm here for it.
I am 100% convinced that they are the dark horse. I think Lando will win his inaugural F1 race in 2024. And I really think it could be Bahrain.
Wow.
I really do. But Red Bull will sweep the floor this year again. It will be less dominant.
It'll be less dominant.
But I think they'll still crack 400 or 500 points.
Yeah.
There's so many races. This is the longest F1
24.
season. It's insane.
Yeah, I want to say I'm betting they're going to win. I don't think they'll break 20.
Yeah.
But I think it'll be high teens.
We literally almost have a race every other weekend this year.
Phenomenal.
There's 26 pay periods for most people. There's 24 races this year. That's how I just calculated that in my mind.
I love that.
That's amazing. Okay, we're very excited, if you can't tell, for the season to start. But there are a few things that are happening off track. We gotta give a Horner update. So we don't have any more information in regards to what happened, how it happened, or what was said, or what was not said, or if anything was said, or if pictures were sent, or if they weren't sent. We have no idea.
There's
a lot of ambiguous language around it.
Everything is ambiguous.
It's an internal investigation. So again, we're unlikely to know the details of what's going on. Here's what we do know. It has been released that either we're recording this on Monday in Los Angeles, that Tuesday or Wednesday, the 27th or 28th of February, it will come out as to what the verdict is on Horner.
Yeah, and there's some speculation around what that could be. And you were teeing this up before we started around the language shifting from, kind of this ambiguous, does Horner stay, does he go, to, well, does he stay in his dual role?
Exactly, as team principal and chief executive.
And I think Red Bull's teeing up what the decision is going to be.
I 100% agree. And I think what we will see here is that the that it may be, if he is found to be, which at this point they have all of the information that they could have possibly gathered. We're waiting on a verdict, especially if it's coming tomorrow. And he was at preseason testing. I'm like, come on, guys, he's staying.
And he was at the car reveal.
He's staying. It's just dependent if they want to give him a slap on the wrist. And I think the slap on the wrist will be, hey, you're still going to be team principal, but you're no longer going to be the chief executive, and we're going to work to bring somebody in. And then in probably 2 years, they'll fire that person, and he'll become both again. Who knows?
Yeah.
There is something interesting that a podcast you listen to, The Checkered Flag, brought up, which is that, which I didn't know until all of this came to fruition, is that Red Bull, the parent company, is now owned primarily by, is it an individual or an organization in
I want to
Thailand?
say it's either a collective or an individual.
Right, in Thailand.
And
they own 51%, which means that they have all major voting rights of a public organization.
Yes, absolutely.
If you need information in regards to this, go watch Mr. Deeds. And obviously, the Red Bull company itself retains 49%, whether that's around family or whoever.
And there's distinctions between those two groups and how they want to handle this.
Yes. The people at the Red Bull ring versus the dude in Thailand. The dude in Thailand wants Horner. People at the Red Bull ring are on the fence. They don't know what they want. There's beef. There's all this kind of stuff. This is all conjecture.
But it's from folks who are close to the teams, who are close to the sources. It's not just
sources
rumors. Sources closest. But there's a lot of talk about, and again, we're speculating what the future of Red Bull is if Horner were to transition. I don't think that's going to be the case now, since he's been so public and everywhere. But there were talks of Adrian leaving.
Adrian Newey, the car designer, leaving, the reason why they are where they are.
The best designer
he has, like,
F1
I think
history.
He has over 20 championships between constructors and drivers between the cars that he's designed over the years. Like, he's one of the most formidable.
Yeah, he's like the Steve Jobs of F1.
100%. That is a great example.
Right? I just saw that. I was like, of course, that's who he is.
100%.
I saw him like wearing like some jeans today and a blue shirt
and a grubby blue polo.
Like,
I literally thought to myself, I was like, Ben's gonna love this. I was like,
yes. But so there's talks of,
the freaking Gandhi of F1.
What the future would look like at Red Bull if he stays, if Horner leaves. It's all conjecture.
Yes.
It's all speculation. I'd love to get to the point where it's just, let's go racing. We figure this out.
Exactly.
And Ford wants it figured out. F1 wants it figured out. The FIA wants it figured out. Red Bull wants it figured out.
Christian wants it figured out. Max wants it figured out. Everyone's like, literally, Max was like, it's going to be better for everyone once this is flipping done.
Yeah.
He's like, I just want it. I'm here to race.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, we all are.
So
we'll find out. Most likely, by the time that we record the Bahrain episode, we will have clarity.
Yes, we will.
Whatever that may be, we will have it on what it is. Okay. So before I don't even know if we have time to talk about the driver market. I just want to say this. Okay. Hamilton's move with, I think it's 12 or 13 people that were out of contract coming into this year.
It was the majority.
So this is the first year in the history of Formula One where last year's drivers lineup is the same as this year's drivers lineup. That has never happened in the history of Formula One.
It's fascinating.
That's crazy.
I feel like that would have at some point, but I guess
never.
No. Wow.
Never happened. Someone has always come in, someone has always left, or a rookie has come in, whatever.
Yeah.
And obviously last year was an example of that. We had Logan, we had De Vries, we had Piastri. Those were all brand new drivers. We had shifts across the board with different drivers going to different places.
But hang on a second though. You're talking about the driver lineup at the end of the season.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because we have had shifts, obviously.
Yes, technically.
Okay.
But with the grid that ended last year
is the one that started this year.
Exactly. And so that's never happened before. And it will never happen again because there's like 13 plus contracts up at the end of this year. And Hamilton's move to Ferrari has thrown the entire grid into disarray because Sainz is now out of a seat. And now that Sainz is available, everyone's going, I love Carlos Sainz. Carlos Sainz is the only one that won a race.
He is.
Last year. Carlos Sainz is a phenomenal racer. Everywhere he's raced, he's been awesome.
The last 2 years,
he's never been in a position to be number one. Maybe I can make him my number one driver. Maybe he wants to be a number one driver.
Maybe.
He's the most. I think someone said he's the most undesirable, desirable driver because he's like everyone wants him, but then he always gets the boot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he has gotten the boot.
He got the boot from Renault for Danny. He got the boot at McLaren.
Gosh, poor guy.
You know what I mean? And now he gets the boot for Lewis.
But if you got to get the boot for someone,
oh my gosh, 100%.
At least you're not getting the boot for someone
he's only ever gotten booted for people that are proven statistically better than him, which is great.
Yeah,
and people want him, and he is a great driver. But all I'm saying is this: everything hinges on this Mercedes seat.
Of course it does. Yeah, because that is at this point the most desirable seat.
Yeah.
Even though Mercedes is still figuring themselves out, they're an institution, people. Mm-hmm. Like anyone would want to race for them because it's Toto. They're figuring themselves out. Like they're still going to be a formidable force. So I think that seat, but also if there's a Red Bull seat open, if Checo doesn't lock down.
Not if there is a Red Bull seat open. It's open. The contract is not signed. In my mind, if they don't, until a contract is signed, that seat is open. In my mind.
Fair enough.
Helmut Marko came out and he said,
"Yeah,
I've talked to Liam Lawson and I've told him that there is a seat for him on the grid in 2025." Okay, so Helmut Marko is the guy who runs the entire driver development and placement and strategy for Red Bull Racing as a whole, including Red Bull team, and VCARB, Visa Cash App Race Bull.
Which, how hard is that job, really?
I don't know, but he does a pretty good job.
I mean, he does, but like, is it a full-time thing or is it just like?
I don't know. The guy doesn't look like he can see out of one eye, so I don't know.
I'm like, how many hours a week are we doing this thing?
I don't know. I think he's in it for the races, but anyway, there's that. Okay, so let's talk about the Mercedes seat. Who can take it?
Well, Alonso could take it.
Sure.
There's talk of Sainz taking it. I mean, you need someone who's got race wins.
Yep. Which is Alonso and Sainz.
Or you bring in someone who's up and coming. There's already talks, I believe, of an Italian driver up and coming. There's
Andrea Kimi Antonelli is perceived as of now to be the next Max Verstappen, which is number one, a lot of pressure to put on a 17-year-old. But there is strong speculation that that's why Lewis did not get a 2 or 3 year contract like he wanted
to ease him out and bring in
correct
him.
Correct. And so not even ease him out, just have the option to. And so there's a lot of speculation, which means that drivers are going to take that in consideration. And here's the thing about Fernando Alonso. I initially wanted him to come to Mercedes because obviously I think that would be best for Mercedes.
Yeah.
And as a Mercedes fan, that's what I look for. However, I don't think Alonso's going to do it. Alonso's not going to do it. He's not doing it for a 1 year on a car that doesn't perform. There's no way. Alonso, not when he's got a freaking sweet spot at Aston Martin. No. Now, if Aston Martin doesn't perform this year, I feel like Alonso could pull the plug because he's like, nah, I'm cool. I'm going to go somewhere else.
Yeah, this guy isn't just racing because it's a nice hobby.
No. He wants his third world championship.
Fierce competitor.
Oh my gosh. He's amazing.
So, dude, this is a crazy thought.
I have a crazy thought too.
But that second Red Bull seat is technically open.
You took it right out of my mind. I said it last year. I said it last year.
Last year. Both of us said it last year together. Why would if I'm Alonso and I'm looking at the seats that are open?
Yes.
There's Mercedes.
Yes.
But that Red Bull seat is open.
Yes, 100%. I would 100%.
Why
think
wouldn't I go to Red Bull?
And
I'm going to win races.
From a personality to personality standpoint, I don't know anyone other than Daniel Ricciardo that could hang with Max Verstappen.
No, I think it's like literally Alonso or Danny.
The other options are Esteban Ocon put his highlighted how much of a great relationship he has, and good on you, Ocon. And Ocon,
I appreciate the confidence.
I appreciate the confidence.
I'm here for it.
Alex Albon,
Mercedes
is an option. He drove for Red Bull, and Red Bull is now looking at him going like, man, did we flip and let him go? If you don't think that they're looking at him to bring him back to check. And the Alex Albon that drove for Red Bull is very different than the Alex Albon that's driving for Williams right now.
True. Does he go back? Does he risk it though? Does he risk getting axed from Red Bull twice?
I don't know. But it's an option. Some people are saying maybe Pierre Gasly. Because the Alpine, the trip to Alpine that he made was distinctly because he felt AlphaTauri wasn't going anywhere. Now AlphaTauri has gone somewhere.
And Alpine has
gone nowhere.
Yeah.
So Pierre, he's a solid driver. I don't think
Checo win Mercedes?
No. I don't think, and here's why. I don't think they'll take Sainz or Checo. And here are the reasons why.
Yeah, why?
From a PR perspective and a pride perspective, how does Toto go, oh, the driver that you got kicked out for, I'll have you come drive for me.
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to happen. That's Sainz. And Checo is the same. Mm-hmm. Oh, so you weren't good enough for Red Bull. Now you're good enough for Mercedes. They're not going to do it.
Yeah, he'd be better to bring in Antonelli.
100%.
And just groom say, him. Hey, we're grooming the next world champion.
If he does really well in F2 this year, and he wins F2 or even comes second or third and shows great promise, they know that their car is going to be okay in 2025, I'd take the risk on that kid and go, great, use 25, the last year of the regulations, to solidify yourself, have your Logan Sargent season. And then coming into 2026, you're going to have an idea of what it feels like in F1, what the pressure's like, what the media's like, what the team's like, how to work with them. And we're going to go
idea, actually.
Going to 2026. I'm like, that's what you do. Yeah. And then Toto comes back and he keeps teaching at Harvard and he keeps going, this is how you come back. This is your comeback career. I think that's what could happen.
That makes a lot of sense because you still maintain the edge. You still control the narrative, because if they take any one of the drivers that we've named except Alonso, the narrative is already written for you.
100%.
It's like, okay, so clearly Mercedes is where you go if you don't want to compete.
Which is what his sponsors will be thinking.
Yes, absolutely. But if he gets Alonso, and if Alonso wins a race or two this year with Aston, then it's like, okay, but anyone else that you've named, I'm like, it's just a downgrade.
Yeah.
But you go with the young gun, you say, we're going to do what Red Bull did. We're going to bring the next Max into F1. Yeah.
100%.
Still keep the edge. You can control the narrative.
Yeah. Well, you changed the story of your Mercedes dominance to where now the take a risk, crazy team. They very well could. Wow. It's a lot going on this season of Formula One. Thank you for joining us for our testing breakdown.
Next time we talk, we're going to be breaking down
the race in Bahrain.
Race of the season.
It's lights out and away we go.
Absolutely.
Hey, if you're hanging with us for the last hour and 15 minutes, thank you so much. And we appreciate you listening to us bag about Formula One.
As always, we're here for it.
And we will see you next week.
See you, folks.
Bye-bye.